Hey there, boils and ghouls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly, where George and I interview Samhain. He is the king of clowns, and chances are, there's a very good chance you've seen one of his videos. If you've like any horror page, you've seen that video scroll by. It is definitely a face you will remember. He is a personality and entertainer that travels the world doing pretty much everything you could think of. For him, Halloween is never over, and it is a good interview. I think you guys are really gonna dig this one. Here it is.
How did Samhain come about? What were the influences on the look and the demeanor of the character? And then I have a question I want to know after that. But so how did Samhain come to get birthed into the world?
I guess so. My dad is a special effects makeup artist. He's been one for over 20 years, based out of New York, primarily. Not anymore, but that's where he started. He's worked with the likes of I don't know if it's familiar at all to Bob Kelly. Bob Kelly, before he passed away, supplied 90% of the makeup wigs. I think I want to go so far as to say prosthetics. I'm not sure. For like SNL and stuff like that, Broadway productions. He did stuff like Celebrity Deathmatch, the first and second seasons.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome. Worked on some big stuff, but this is like all like way back, and then he relocated to Ohio. So obviously the demand for special effects isn't as great out there, and practical effects as well aren't sought after as much anymore in Hollywood. Sure. There's still a market, but anyway, my point is I grew up around that, and then every Halloween my dad would usually be contracted as the head of makeup for either a local haunted house or one that was fairly close but say out of town, and I would always tag along. My first recollection was at Madison Square Gardens, which during Halloween is renamed Madison Scare Gardens. And I think I was like 6 or 7, and they were playing like, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Coffin Joe is who he goes by. He look him up. He plays these really weird movies that are black and white and really screwed up. But I remember seeing that and like a whole bunch of scare actors, and I was just like fascinated. So obviously, following suit of, my dad, I was like, I want to be involved, and started acting, doing volunteer work. And then over the years got more and more, I guess, learned or more experience with it. I dabbled in like all sorts of different characters, prosthetics. But one year I remember we also used to do, we were one of those families that had one of those crazy front yards every Halloween.
Yeah.
So I would always like run around the front yard and scare people who obviously didn't want to be scared, that are just trick-or-treating, but I didn't care. I was like 11. And my dad put a clown prosthetic, a full face clown prosthetic on my face that year. And I scared the crap out of a ton of people, but I think what probably resonated with me more was not just the visceral, varied reaction from all the people, because it affected everybody to some degree, but also the fact that towards the end of the night, I think I was like 12 or 13 at this point, and there was these group of girls that were like 4 or 5 years my senior, that were like very intrigued, and I ended up going and hanging out with all of them in my room, and my dad just like kept staring at me with this like smirk, and I was like, that's not the primary, but that stuck out, as well as the interactions with people. So I was like, oh, this clown thing really bothers people. So I started, creating characters based around the coulrophobia. And it just became like a evolution, because with prosthetics, I sweat a ton. My temperature, body temperature runs really high naturally. So I kind of just, and if you've ever worn a full face prosthetic, most people who have at haunted houses or movies, they know it's not fun. I don't care who you talk to. I mean, it's worth the reaction and the look and the detail. Yeah, it's awesome, but it is so tiresome because you're gluing crap to your face.
So not only were you trying to scare people, but you're also trying to keep your cool around the ladies.
Yeah. at the time, inadvertently at the time, but yeah. But yeah, so I just eventually phased out the prosthetic, and we went to airbrush. And then I just started adding aspects to the design. Originally, my dad would just airbrush like a pretty rudimentary, like clown, look, very stereotypical. And then over the years, I would just, because he's one of those artists where he'll start working on something, and I'm similar, but except I listen to people, and when he gets carried away, he'll be like, "Oh, we can add this. Oh, we can add this," and he'll keep doing it, even if you're like, "I just want a plain white and black clown." He'll be like, "Oh, we can add some blue for shading and highlight." No. So eventually, I started doing it myself because I wanted it to look a certain way, and learn from him. So the look specifically that's what I was getting to is a culmination of my 3 favorite, I guess, icons in horror. And each one for obviously different reasons, but Stephen King's It, which is where you get, the teeth, the clown appearance. And it also is in relation to not just the physical appearance, but the demeanor. And I'm talking specifically Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise. And then The Crow, which is where you get, that iconic smile and the lines with it. And then Pinhead from Clive Barker's Hellraiser, which is where you get the piercings and the kind of, I guess, sadistic look or sadomasochistic look with, the piercings and freak show stuff. But it also is also using their personalities as well and their demeanor as characters. Doug Bradley playing Pinhead, and like I said, Pennywise. Not really so much Brandon Lee in The Crow in terms of personality. No offense to that, but yeah. So
no, Doug Bradley's is so interesting because he's so soft spoken, and it's kind of like an understated menace. So
that's cool. Actually, are you familiar with? I think her name's Steph Sculio. His wife or girlfriend, I think. No, not wife, girlfriend. Look her up on Instagram. She's actually an artist as well, and
excellent.
She makes like some demented, but awesome looking, mixed media art pieces, paintings, stuff like that. And obviously, with the attachment to her boyfriend being Pinhead, that's a big deal.
No, and that's really cool, and it's amazing. It stands out to me that those 3 influences are each truly either terrifying or bleak, or a combination thereof, right? So the fact that you've melded 3 things that are legitimately scary, that's pretty impressive that you could put those together into one.
Same, right?
Well, I mean, also in my personal life, I guess excluding the character, everything that I do or try and do, obviously I'm human, so I'm not perfect, but is usually, it's very purposeful. It has an intention behind it, whether blatantly stated or not. So that transfers to the character as well. I mean, certain aspects of character design, or say the safety pins or wardrobe, or each is maybe a nod to something, maybe from my adolescence or something related to horror. If somebody really sat down and analyzed the character, I'm sure they could pick out tons and tons of, I guess, for lack of a better term, Easter eggs that are, related. Which I guess, case in point, perfect example, the safety pins. I started doing that in high school when I was in Ohio, the high school I was telling you guys about earlier. And I don't know, I just did it because I knew it bothered the crap out of the administration. And so I continued to do it, and it was just something I reincorporated into the character as, like I said, a nod to my adolescence, because the character is in itself still me. It's not much different.
That's interesting that you said that, because that was my other question. But just real quick, because it's interesting to me that you're repurposing. So if you put the horror movies aside, right? Clowns are meant to entertain and bring smiles and whatnot. Paper clips are clearly not meant to disturb entire administrations of bloated bureaucracies, right? So you're repurposing things that are sort of innocent for more nefarious purposes, right? Which I find pretty fascinating. that works. When you say that it's a character, what is your relationship to the character itself? Because that really interests me. Like, there's, if there's that Nietzsche saying, like, you stare into the abyss at too long, it stares back into you. Is there anything in the character that is something that you have to be on guard against, or is it completely a relationship that makes sense to you? How do you see your relationship to the character as yourself?
Well, I mean, if you, in relation to or answering your question of if it's something I need to be on guard with, as well as, do I see, commonalities, both, but, basically it's been an evolution, and, definitely a journey, and continues to be, because, I never set out to have this as like a, like a fixed entity. I just did it every Halloween, like with my fan page years and years ago when I first put it together, which I didn't even want to. My friend at the time urged me to do it because I had a small following in Ohio. I made it, and I would literally just post content during the whole month of October, and then the page would be dead the rest of the year.
No shit.
So I had no intentions of making it a full-time thing at all, and then the Bad Bitches video went viral, and I was just like, well, there's something here. Let me like see what I can do with it, and just, I don't know. But I told people in the past, when people would ask me a similar question to like what you asked me, I would say that Samhain is an unrestricted version of myself. A lot of the acting I do, whether it's in movies or haunted houses, is primarily method acting and, on the spot. But I use aspects of, my personal experiences and draw from that to influence the character. I didn't realize as I was creating the character how many similarities there were, and how, I guess similar me and the character are. And as the years have gone on, and I've, I guess started on the journey of doing Samhain full time, it became more and more apparent. It's I started to say more recently that Samhain is a culmination of the best and worst parts of me all at once. So more or less like Jekyll and Hyde. But I'm starting to think less that it's just me, but without I guess consequence or responsibility. That's literally the only difference, because for some odd reason, when you have clown makeup on your face and safety pins and a bunch of piercings, nobody tells you no, or they're afraid to. So it's but there, to answer or go back to this question of, is there some things that need to be on guard? Absolutely, because there's been a couple times, specifically at haunted houses, where I have gotten too in character, I guess. I think some people don't think that's such a thing, but I live and breathe horror and love it. So yeah, I'll just there's been times where I'll be I don't know, going after a patron at a haunted house, and I will start to analyze it like, oh, this is real, this is gonna happen. You're dying tonight. And I mean that results in an awesome performance from their perception, but
right until it doesn't. Right,
you still need to keep it in check, obviously. So
that is literally one of my fiance's deepest fears. Every time we go to a haunt, she's like, there's a real person hiding here
who's about to indulge, right?
Have you ever brought her to an extreme haunt?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, then it's even more unsettling, right? But right, that's amazing to me. So this might be a weird question, but like so now that you've kind of the character snuck up on you, you've fleshed it out, and now it's a little more settled. There's been a lot of iterations of it, and you've had to pay attention to it in terms of time, right? Because now it's full time. Does that give you insight into the characters other people play? Like, what percentage of people in daily life do you think are also mainly playing characters, just way less flamboyant? So, like, they're playing the banker or the dude.
Oh, in general society.
Yeah.
And what kind of insight does playing this character give you into sniffing that out, that other people are doing it, if at all?
A lot. Definitely. It. I've started to see because like what I like to tell people a lot is like when I walk into a room or a party or an event, it doesn't matter if I'm hosting it, I've been promoted, or if I'm just showing up and they have no idea I'm going to be there. It's interesting watching everybody in the room highlight themselves, whether intentionally or not, because a guy with clown makeup and crap in his face and contacts just walked in the room and they're like, what? It's not Halloween. Why is he here? Or something to that effect.
Sure.
So seeing that from their perspective tells me tons about them, as well as people I've noticed in conversation, whether it's one-on-one or group discussions at events or what have you. Anytime I go out, they're more forthcoming with like, I guess, like a self-expose, or just they're just more open in general. I've had people share stuff with me that either they will flatly state, I don't tell anybody about this, or it's readily apparent. So that goes to show me, in regards to the characters people play in society on a daily basis, that it's literally everyone. Everybody gets up, has a routine that they, meet, or requirements that they meet, mind you, that helps them flesh out that role. I mean, it's not to say they're lying as to who they are, but they are still putting on a face every day, same as me. I'm just wearing an actual one that's different than my normal one.
That's so interesting, because you are data mining and carrying it around, and that is really interesting. Like what because you're exposing that. I mean, it doesn't have to be showy to be a prop, right? Like whatever their Rolex is a prop just as much as anything that you're incorporating into the character, right? And you're exposing it when you stroll into a room and
highlighting it.
Right, and highlighting it, right? Okay, so on that theme, if it's possible to answer it, it may not be. Who can you think of, a person or a thing, who or what is the antithesis of Samhain? What's the opposite of you?
Antithesis.
Who's the who represents everything that you're against?
Immediately I start thinking about, like, who are all the people I hate?
That's fair.
We want a detailed list.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know by name whoever the leader of the Westboro Baptist Church is, for sure, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, the one guy died, right? That one asshole, but someone must have taken it over.
Phelps something.
Oh, I'm
right?
sure.
The
There's always people in the ranks to fill that. That's definitely one. But that's just based off surface interpretations, what they put out. I mean, it's a very distinct possibility that person deep down, could be eerily similar to me. And it's just like we were talking about a minute ago, putting on this mask, for whatever reasons they have.
Sure.
An individual, I'm trying to think. I mean,
or institution or concept. I noticed, in a lot of the things that you present to the world, one of the things that I caught my eye and that I admire is that there's a radical honesty to it, and that you want a real dialogue, right? Like with your followers, and it, you've launched videos I've seen you do where you start it with, like, what's the definition of X? Which nobody would ever just say that and then let silence happen. What's the Pulp Fiction thing? Uncomfortable silence, the Uma Thurman's line. Like, that's when you know you're in a real relationship. And you're doing that, right? Like when you launch something like that, but that leaves them space to think and come up with a real answer, and or Google, whatever the case may be, right? Which seems important to you, right? So I was thinking perhaps maybe just the concept of deceit or closed-mindedness is kind of what I would think would sort of be the opposite of how I take you, but I'm curious to how you take it.
Probably just modern society as a whole, honestly. I mean, you said institution. That's sure. To me, that's what I view as, like, I guess my biggest quote enemy or antithesis would be, general society as it exists mindset, not individual people per se, because everybody is capable of changing their opinions or refining them or, adopting new ones. But I don't know, like just, I born in New York, so that's where largely the bluntness comes from, as well as, my upbringing. But and then having the ability, like I said earlier, with nobody tells me no when I'm in makeup. It's goes hand in hand with the fact that like I can say things and do things that, if I was without makeup, I mean, maybe it still wouldn't be looked down upon, or I would be, told to stop, because, the only difference really visually is just remove the makeup when I'm quote normal. But just a quote normal looking person, if they were to try or attempt to say or do some of the things that I do as my character, they would, I'm sure, be chastised for it. But it's just the fact that people have such a hard time, I guess, trying to think of the words, voice their concern or issues with a statement made when I look, frightening. They're much more reserved because I don't know if they're afraid of retaliation. Now I have no idea where I was going with that.
They probably are afraid of it.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that happening.
It's just society as a whole, I guess, like I'm sure there's multitudes of, inspiration or influence, like upbringing, location, demographic, all that. But I guess going into, the next couple years, where we are at now, we're just at a really unique time for a myriad of reasons. But just, it's interesting that we keep, I'm going to try and put it as simply as possible. I put up a video the other day about it in regards to, I went to Scottsdale, Arizona, and got asked to leave a bar after being there for like an hour and a half.
Great.
And they stated when I asked why, I said, yeah, I'll leave. They told me they have a dress code. Quick side note, my parents considered putting me in law school. So I love debating
it's
with
time
people.
To throw down and argue, yeah.
Yeah. But the way I debate or argue is very circularly. So I mean, like, or I don't know if that's the right term, but as they're formulating a response to my original statement, I'm coming up with like 6 others that are coming in from different angles.
Sure.
So usually people just get frustrated and give up, or ideally see my standpoint and maybe not adopt it, but it sits there like a seed. Anyway, they asked me to leave. They said the reasoning was they have a dress code. I asked what the dress code was. They said it was business casual. And I pointed out that the lady that was asking me to leave was wearing a romper and flip-flops when she tried to, brush that aside as, she's staff. They can do what they want without saying it. I pointed out, I'm like, well, that's, whatever. If that's irrelevant, why is the customer seated 2 seats behind you wearing swim trunks, muscle tee, and flip-flops? Socks. She didn't really have anything for that. But that's a perfect example of like what I mean in terms of, because I'm not stupid. I know the reason they asked me to leave. We were actually going to see one of the heads of management that was there. And when one of my buddies talked to him on the phone, he said, yeah, when you guys come back through, I got you. And I'll make that girl serve you bottles all night just because of that. But the reason that she said that and did that was obviously, maybe not obviously, I'm assuming because a customer,
There's a complaint for
have
sure.
an issue.
Yep.
And for context, when I go out, excluding haunted houses, I don't antagonize. I don't act intimidating. I don't walk past somebody and like lunge at them like, no, you want to go or something like that. I'm always very, very polite, very well spoken. Try to be like a gentleman because that speaks volumes in conjunction with my appearance. And it also fucks with people a hell of a lot more if I were to be expect.
Right.
But Yeah, I know that's a long tirade as an explanation, but
No, it makes total
yeah.
sense.
That style of arguing is actually fantastic. That is how, I swear to God, I got a refund from JetBlue of all people. that style. So it is actually the perfect style of
That's
arguing.
a miracle that you got anything out of those.
It really was. I'm curious about the evolution of the character. Have you noticed, throughout the years, or with the rise of popularity, or as you grow as a human, like how has the character evolved with you to represent who you are today?
Um, Definitely, it's given me an outlet for first and foremost frustrations and to voice things that I think are not talked about, maybe just in my mind, and then I will get confirmation from the fan base or just people in general, like confirming, oh, you're not the only one who thinks this. That's always been like a, a pivotal point of like just me as a person growing up was going from New York, a melting pot of all sorts of different styles and people and races, and relocating to Ohio where definitely not, and basically just having the I guess reoccurring thought that you're the only one in that area, maybe not necessarily in the world, but that feels or thinks a certain way. That's been an ongoing, I guess, journey and experience with, current, I guess, I've noticed more and more. Actually, no. Let me rewind. Another, I guess, pillar or mainstay has always been fan interaction. That's never changed. And with the popularity, as you were asking, as it's evolved and continued to grow, it's harder to acknowledge individually, people that support what I do, or just the idea of it, art, whatever. But I always try and focus on that, because when I was growing up, anybody that I looked up to or quote unquote idolized or anything like that, there was a couple interactions that I remember specifically, whether they were, music artists or what have you. And I went out on a limb and reached out to them. There was some interactions where I got a response back, and that was just not earth shattering in a bad way, but earth shattering in a good way. It just like floored me. And the polar opposite of those interactions of people were either just dismissive or nothing at all. Those were definitely like soul crushing events where I was like, you spend all this time trying to reach out to somebody that you look up to or idolize. So that's definitely been something that I've tried to keep with, because I don't know, I tell people all the time, like, at the end of the day, I'm just like a weird dude from the Bronx that likes horror movies, and like I just do this character. Like there's really no huge difference, because people are like, oh, you get to go to these cool parties, meet these cool people. Yeah, but that's as a result of me putting in the work and the effort, and putting myself out there and being as, I don't know, a walking advertisement. Just being that, it's hard to miss me. So I end up networking a lot more, and that's one of the things I'm good at, but that still doesn't change the fact that I'm still, a normal person. That's why I hate the famous, infamous, insta-famous celebrity. I hate all those, because I think like anybody who prescribes that to themselves is fucking stupid. Which actually, back to your when you asked antithesis, the Kardashians as a whole, definitely that's on that
I was
list.
thinking that, actually.
Yeah,
That makes total sense. Because they use people as booster rockets, right? They fall away where they try to climb higher, and everything else is disposable.
And yeah,
Ideally, if I got to a point in my career with financial not being an issue or even a thought, and being able to do this full time in whatever facet it might be at that point, or evolution, I would love to, and it is in all honesty my plan, all the people that were in the beginning whether I still talk to them or not, you hear stories about certain celebrities, like that. There's one, I guess, most recent, Zach Galifianakis. I guess there was this elderly woman that lived in his building.
Oh, I heard this. Yeah,
starting out as an actor, and he basically just paid for everything and like made her very, very comfortable after he made it big.
Yep.
That's what I would more than love to do, because I still remember those people, and I still, have like a running tally list of all the people that have always been there. That's something that I definitely want to do, because I feel people like Kardashians don't.
No, and that's amazing. Well, there's two reasons. One, they're not humans, and two,
No.
is that it's, I was reading something about how yeah, exactly. I was reading something about how it was a I think it was a soccer match, and it was 20 years ago, and the goalie had written down notes in his pocket that got torn and beaten up on how he wanted to play the game, and now that scrap of paper sold for like $1.3 million at an auction because they won like the World Cup or something like that, right? But now it's all digital, right? So there's no keepsakes for that. Like whoever's playing that game now certainly does not have a scrap of paper in their pocket, and you're acknowledging people, and it's digital, right? It's not like where you'd send in a letter physically to someone and be like,
both.
Oh, you do get that still?
Yeah, I had a PO box for a while there where
no kidding.
I flat out said, if you send me a letter, I will respond to you. Give me some time. I didn't give like a time frame either. But my only stipulations and requests were, please don't be weird. And I did get a good amount of like fan art. I got a box that a girl had made. She like wood burned like my name into it and some designs.
Cool.
I got like a doll somebody had made, letters, a whole bunch of stuff, and I responded to each and every one. There was actually one fan that I still converse with on Twitter here and there. She, at the time, I was just like propping my phone up, like ghetto rigging it for like live streams, and it was a common occurrence that the phone would like fall over and like slam down. And there's people, wearing headphones. So people would comment, like RIP headphone users. And she actually mailed to me some phone stands for the live stream.
That's amazing.
So I mailed her back, an autographed print, and then like a little letter that I had like hand distressed and like burned the edges, looked like pirate treasure map kind of.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I do both. I know for some people, they prefer physical items. Some people don't care. I know ideally everybody would love to have like something to hold on to, because that's way more meaningful. But
sure,
the thing I always try and do is at the very least just respond to some degree and acknowledge and show appreciation, because that if not for the fan base, that I would not be where I am. So I know that, but especially with the physical items, like that's why I'm trying to revamp like my Patreon.
Yep.
That's huge. Like the people that might support you but be like, I don't really want to throw you money, which is cool too. Just the support itself is means a lot.
Yep.
There are other people out there that are like, I have somewhat of a disposable income. I want to, firsthand support what you do. I've started to, create stuff for that as well, and taking from, previous experiences of, sending out, whether it be like, a piece of art or, a handwritten letter or something like that, because I think that's infinitely more meaningful.
Agreed, and that's fantastic. That's awesome. What is the Patreon? Do you know the URL off the top of your head?
I actually had it up. I think it's just Patreon, Samhain the one.
Perfect.
I can pull it up.
Excellent, and we'll put it in the show notes for everybody.
No, I appreciate that.
Speaking of social media, like just social media in general, now that it's something that you're involved in so extensively, like can you speak as someone who's doing it on social media in general, in terms of, like, I was thinking of it almost like in the Dungeons and Dragons scale, like if you had to assign a characteristic, is it like lawful evil, is it like what How do you see social media in general?
I see it as a culmination of the best parts of society, the worst parts of society, the gray areas, all rolled into one. I mean, personally, like I said earlier, with my friend encouraging me to create the character page, I never really was a huge fan of social media. I did it just because it's like, what we do in today's day and age. I mean,
Yep.
if it tells you anything, I had a Zanga back in the day. I don't know if you remember.
yeah, boy.
Yeah. I actually had my Zanga page banned like over 9 times, to the point where I had like the entirety of the code, all the GIFs, everything was saved in templates. So every time we get banned, I just re-upload and make another one.
I'm surprised the CEO of Zanga didn't just come after you. What else was he doing?
He was wishing he was MySpace is what he was doing.
Well, like even with like moving forward in like Facebook, like I remember MySpace, I did a similar thing. I got my MySpace banned a couple times as well. But Facebook was like a weird evolution, because when one of my exes tried to get me on it before I was, and at this point everybody was on it, and I was one of those people that, this is just how I am with mostly everything. If it's trending and everybody's talking about it, I will refuse to touch it. Because I don't want people spoiling it for me, and I want to see if it's actually just because it's trending.
Yep.
If it's actually good, then I'll wait till the roar dies down and see. Like, same that applies to television series or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, she was.
It's like all the companies who invested millions of dollars of marketing on Vine.
Yeah, and analyzing
Right,
like
exactly.
crowd what is it, mob mentality or what have you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, she kept encouraging me to make one, and I'm like, I don't know. And then when I finally set it up, I'm like, where do you put all your like gifts and background? How do you edit? She's like,
Where's my top 8?
what? And I was confused, but I mean, so I just mentioned that because that kind of gives you a scope in terms of like, I guess, my internet presence and how long I've been around it and through the evolution. But I just I think social media is a good thing. The power of the internet. I mean, I started out as a PC gamer back in the day, playing like Doom and Unreal Tournament. So I saw really early on, like dial-up days, like the ability to connect with people that you would never meet just because you already have a similar interest, which is obviously that game, and being able to interact with them. But social media expands on that, in variety of levels. But it's a really good platform. I mean, you can use it for so many things that are positive, and you can use it for money making endeavors. Obviously, you have streamers that make hundreds, thousands of dollars, YouTubers, and then I mean you have people that use it for malicious purposes. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if I were to, I guess, prescribe a statement to how I feel about the current state of social media as a whole, I think it's at a retarded point in terms of the majority, because the majority of people just like cycle through, all their different social platforms. I used to have an ex that would literally go Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like in a circle.
Yep.
And she would just scroll. And it was like an addiction, which I know it is in today's day and age. But
Sure.
that's the majority. But that there's a a small group of people, and then there's subgroups within those that are using it for positive, whether it be governmental change or promoting art or creating music or just showing people just cool shit, or just giving people a distraction from the benign repetition of everyday life. There's a page on Instagram that Sky turned me on to. It's a Satisfying Pieces, I think is what it's called.
I like that name.
It's like I guess it's similar to the ASMR. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Oh yeah.
Okay. A lot of people have told me that I should do like videos of that, which I had no knowledge of that till recently. But anyway, it's just like videos of them cutting like that gravity sand with like knives and like just squishing slime together. and I'll watch that crap for hours. This is amazing. And I mean, it's very satisfying, but you know, something as simple as that to going all the way to influencing political change. It's there. I just think it needs to be more so. I just wish that there was a bigger focus on, instead of, you know, cat videos, which I love too. I'm on board with the cat videos. Just, you know, more of a focus on that and less on, you know, negative things, videos, you know, negative news. So,
Yep. And I mean, a lot of what I use it for is art discovery, for lack of a better phrase. So that actually leads me to, you had said something really interesting to me, that because we come from a very similar philosophy on this point, which is that artists shouldn't be, when they don't have to be competitive with each other, they should be mutually supporting.
yeah.
So I know that it's important to use to support artists and that kind of endeavor as it go. Why is it? And have you always felt that way, or is it something that's grown?
It hasn't always been that way. I used to, I guess, to give you a good example, when I was in middle school, I'm sorry. When I first started piercing myself and getting the piercings that I have now, because all the ones, I don't know if a lot of people know that, I did all the ones that I have. I actually apprenticed for like a couple years till I realized there isn't shit to be made in being I mean, most people, you know, you're going to get your belly button pierced. Are you going to go back and get the same? So the consistency, yeah.
Good point.
But so as I started getting piercings, I specifically got piercings that nobody had in school, or ones that, you know, I was fond of, or, you know, caught my eye. So it was a combination of the two of those. And the reasoning was, you know, obviously I didn't want to have anything anyone else had. But the reason I mentioned that is I remember as middle school and high school went on, remember I mentioned that I was like the most extreme one at that school when I first arrived. I'm not going to claim, you know, that it was because of me, or I'm the trendsetter. I'm sure that, you know, I might have had something to do with it, but I'm not the only influence. I started to notice people started to get piercings similar or identical to me as the years went on. And back then, it used to make me like super angry. I was just like, I felt like they had like stolen it from me.
Plagiarism. Yep.
Yeah. But then, you know, my dad, as I was growing up, he said the phrase, which I'm sure a lot of people know, you know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Didn't change the fact that it still pissed me off. But, I mean, I do agree with it to an extent. I mean, there's a lot of people now that, like, for Halloween, they'll go and they'll dress up as me. And do my makeup, or just, you know, inspiring people, and they'll, even if it's not, you know, based around me or my character or, you know, a likeness of me, to see that I inadvertently or indirectly will, you know, encourage people to do something. I mean, that's a really good feeling to know that you do that. So as time has gone on and I've gotten older, and the evolution of the character along with it, seeing, you know, people that stopped, you know, creating for like years and years and years, they came to my page and they were like, wow, you know, and then they just got inspired, and seeing what they come out with, and it's like, I wish I could do that crap. But then again, they're standing there saying the same thing about like my stuff. It's it's still like it's gratifying.
That's
so
awesome.
now,
yeah.
I'm definitely in support of it, but it's interesting how the evolution has come about.
But you had to get there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You're making me want to start a business installing extra belly buttons on people, just to have them be able to do
I would be a patron of that for just because it'd be weird. And I want to see how many people would like sign up for that.
It would totally be weird.
I feel like there's definitely people who would, though.
Oh, for sure. That's a matter of fact, it's got to
Call it new flesh.
Oh my God.
Long live the new flesh. Is that copyrighted? I'm sure it is. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then we know that you have a deep love of Halloween and also horror and horror movies, and that's what our That's our people love too. So I'm curious. This always intrigues me. Is there it doesn't have to be a horror movie. It could be any movie. But is there a movie that you would be proud if you had directed it?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's probably not for the people that have seen it popular. When I told my dad that I liked it, me and him disagreed and argued about it vehemently for like several hours.
That's the best.
He's very old school cinema.
Sure.
But it would probably be a Serbian film. I don't know if you've seen it.
Of course.
Okay. My reasoning for that is because, yeah, that film was grotesquely and awesomely shocking. But the reason I would have been proud to direct, if I had come up with that idea and, screenplay, the whole 9 yards to production, because that movie, with the shocking elements and visuals and, statements and comments throughout, you still become so enamored with the main characters and feel so deeply for the main character and his family. And that was my statement to my dad. He was lost on the shock value. And I'm like, well, but at its core, when you simplify it, I'm like, cinema is supposed to make you feel. And that's one of the only movies that I can think of that it affected me like so viscerally. Like the first time I saw it, before I saw it, I read like the Wikipedia plot overview, and I was like, nuh-uh, this is not no. And which actually the trailer that I saw, which was actually on cable TV, literally just showed the cover with the text, a Serbian film. Sure. And the narrator was like, it's too graphic, we can't show you on TV. I'm like, whatever, nice marketing ploy. Okay, well, you got me, I'm gonna go look it up. And I did, read the plot overview, and I was like, no. So I had to find it. Obviously, most people know it's very obscure because of how graphic it is and the subject matter. But I've watched it several times since then. There was one time in particular where I had watched it with one of my girlfriends at the time, and I don't know why. I don't think I connected the thoughts necessarily, but in my head, I'm like, this was, I guess, the how I thought the night was going to go. I'm like, yeah, we're going to watch a movie, we'll like fool around afterwards. And I don't know why I picked Serbian film, to be quite honest with you, because we watched it and neither of us touched each other for like an hour. And I went from, being completely in the mood and ready to go. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just watch something nice. Let's watch like a comedy or something. But that's what, in my opinion, film is supposed to do. It's supposed to, that's just the, one end of the spectrum, mind you. But if a movie is that, has that big of an impact on, how you feel at that very moment in time, or, your plans, then that's a hell of a movie. So yeah.
Absolutely. I remember I had caught Sallow, the 120 Days of Sodom, in the theater, and the audience was sort of stunned. It's similar-ish to Serbian film, older, but it was interesting because there was a restaurant near the theater, so everyone, I gone to this theater a lot, and I've seen movies that won Oscars and like got a lot of accolades or whatever, and they, you would go to this restaurant, 3 doors down after, and everyone there would be talking about whatever. They'd be talking about like what they were doing the next day or their jobs or whatever. And then I went into this restaurant after this movie showed, after Salo showed, and everyone in the restaurant was talking about the movie, right? Like it went with them. It didn't stay in the theater. It followed them.
Which, by the way, I've never finished it.
Yeah, I mean it's brutal. And then I saw it in Criterion Collection. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? This is crazy. But that's the thing, is it followed them after, right? And that kind of is mind-boggling to me, that art can do that and just track you throughout your day for weeks. You can't get it out of your head, right? And that's amazing to me. But that's why I asked as what would you have liked to direct it, not just what you like or a favorite, right? Because it seems similar to a lot of how you present, which is that's interesting as hell to me. Excellent.
That's the video I just put up on YouTube about I guess just like our society's view on gays. I was, I guess, made to watch, not forced, but Sky put on I Love You, Philip Morris, and I think it was the next day movie called Any Day Now. And both are about interactions between two gay men, and I made a statement after watching Any Day Now, still attached to I Love You, Philip Morris, because I had seen them in succession, but I knew the answer. I still wanted to pose the question out loud of why is it that and this was obviously the focus of the video that I put up. Why is it that society as a whole, specifically heterosexual people, have such an issue with the fact that gay people want to that is an actual thing, and more so, or more importantly, why is it that society and heterosexual people that make up this society that is judgmental and trying to bar them or have such an issue with it, why is it that they fixate so much on the sexual aspect of it instead of the fact that they are literally the same thing as a heterosexual couple? They do the same, they argue just as much, the same problems, make the same decisions, their sex is different. Why is that the focal point? But
and they're
for
just trying
those
to
movies,
they're just trying to make themselves happy.
exactly. And that was the focus of the video, is that we all as human beings inherently are in pursuit of happiness, but for the fact that those two movies made me inclined to make that statement and then follow through and make a video about it, that's cinema at its truest form. Sorry.
No, that's influence. That's the way influence should work. Like, that's the right way. That's excellent. Is there a movie you would urge, not just the people listen to us, but your followers as well, that they probably haven't given a chance? Something obscure that you think they should take a look at?
I'm trying to think.
Serbian film's kind of obscure, so.
Yeah, that's. I mean, in the horror community, I don't think that's that obscure.
No.
Martyrs was really good. That's a foreign film.
Yep.
Also, you said 120 Days of Sodom. So Quills. Yep. That's still. I mean, it's got Jeffrey Rush. But I think it's fallen by the
Quills
wayside.
is really interesting. That's Kate Winslet too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a hell of an ending.
Yeah. Which actually, by the way, quick side note that's kind of unrelated. I made a Tinder profile not too long ago as my character. Just it's free promotion and it's interesting.
And inevitable. If you hadn't, you should have. That's amazing. Right.
But I started to anybody that I matched with for like a week there, I would my first message would be a Marquis de Sade quote, and I would try and see what their response was. So that was
they
fun.
probably don't know
what
all that is.
Anyway, so Martyrs, Quills, I'm trying to think what else. Begotten.
That's
actually
that's excellent.
Silent film.
Yep.
You want to know a fun fact about Begotten? Actually,
Sure.
Which I just found about in a past, I guess, year. Whole reason I found out about Begotten was because it's like an internet, there's gifs of it all over and shit. Mm-hmm. The intro scene, and it's like largely symbolic, but I didn't know that my dad actually worked on that film, which is like mind blowing.
No way.
Like way back in the,
Holy shit.
yeah. I tried to like explain to him, I'm like, you realize that movie is like huge on the internet. He's like, he didn't seem to care or didn't register. I don't know. But he was like, yeah, I remember, working on that film with the director. It was like super weird. And, he had this weird vision I didn't entirely understand. But I guess it didn't come out for like several years. He forgot about it. And then it did. He heard about it. And it was just kind of like, whatever. But I told him, I was like, it's like infamous on the internet.
That's
like,
crazy.
No, but that one.
What are the odds of that?
I actually.
Wow.
Yeah, no, and the fact that I didn't know, and I was like a huge fan of it for like years and years, and like would watch it all the time. Like when I was like, it's really good background. I would put it on like ambient. I would put it on like when I was going to sleep sometimes.
Sure.
But which much to the chagrin.
Yeah.
Chagrin. I'm gonna say how I want to.
Good.
Chagrin. But much to the chagrin of any female company I had, they'd be like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a good background movie." I'm going to sleep. And they're like, "I don't like it. I don't care.
This is my meditation movie.
It's my sleepy time movie." Yeah, but yeah.
That's
Gotten,
awesome.
Martyrs, Quills. I'm trying to think if there's. I'd like to give 4 if I could.
Sure.
Trying to think of one more. Poughkeepsie Tapes. That one, huge. I fucking love that movie.
It's a great movie.
It's
a great movie, and
that's the way it's shot.
Yep, exactly.
Did that predate Blair Witch, by the way, out of curiosity?
I don't know. I know the Last Document did, but I don't remember where they lined up. But that's the thing is, I feel like it's lazy to just bash certain genres. I mean, any genre can be made well if someone really talented approaches it, right? Because I hear that all the time. Like, I hate found footage. Whatever. Yeah, exactly. You hate found footage until John Carpenter would do it.
They can be good.
Right. They can also be overdone.
And also, if they don't beat it to death, like, you know.
Exactly. Exactly right.
With Poughkeepsie Tapes, I actually the way that I became interested in it when I was younger. I used to ride the Long Island Railroad back and forth between New York and Long Island, visiting my dad, living with my mom. Every time my mom would pick me up, I would always get a smoothie at Smoothie King. So I have this like weird thing with like strawberry smoothies. I just love them. And then on the opposite side of that, my dad would always take me to the local bookstore that was in the Long Island Railroad station. And he would always get me a comic. And I would always get Spawn. Spawn was the only comic that I really read growing up. But in the back of one of the Spawn comics, they had an advertisement for Poughkeepsie Tapes when I was growing up. And it was just a picture of a closet with like mounds and mounds of VHS tapes. It was like really ominous, but what's even more interesting is I didn't watch Poughkeepsie Tapes till like this last like 5 years or so, somewhere in there. And I'd forgotten about it. And then I don't remember how I think I was like Googling like most like screwed up horror movies, which I'll do like once every couple months. Sure. And that one came up and I was like, oh, this is that movie. So it was interesting how it like came back around full circle. But that's those 4 for sure. Martyrs, Quills, Poughkeepsie Tapes, and what was the other one?
Sounds like a late evening viewing of these.
That's actually how I discovered Bram Stoker's Dracula. I had an X-Men comic, and they had it was actually an ad for the game, I believe. And it was just like this weird like statue, and it creeped me the hell out. And then years later, I discovered that film on Bravo, and I was like, "Oh, this is that."
This is where I saw
that thing that I saw.
It's the thing that I physically saw when I used to physically buy things. And exactly. Can you tell us a little bit about what Samhain Industries and what's coming next?
Yeah. I guess to answer that, I would give you like a brief explanation, as brief as possible with me. Samhain Industries, obviously it's got my name attached to it because I created it and I act as kind of like the caretaker, networker, and the person who brings everyone into the fold of the company itself. But I saw that, and I continue to see, that there are tons and tons of artists all over social media and the internet in general that are largely not represented at all, misrepresented, or just have no attention brought to their craft, and they're amazing. So I never asked for, my success with social media and the stuff that I made to go viral, and never intended for it. But, I've embraced it and am, catering to it and nurturing it. But I thought, what better of a way to share that besides the other, I guess, projects that I'm working on, is to, share it with them. and help them achieve some degree of notoriety, share them with my fan base, and cultivate, I guess, a artist collective, but which isn't in itself inherently unique in today's day and age. There's tons of people out there who say, it's artist collective. They're trying to build that. What I wanted to do to separate, my company is bring people into the fold. And if they decide to stay, ideally, that's what I'd like to do, is have like mainstays or, permanent installations of people, but I want it to be varied. So this company, any large corporation or individual entity, what have you, can approach our company and be like, I want everything from start to finish in terms of a marketing campaign or what have you. And we'd be able to fulfill all those requirements from the ground up with, all sorts of different aspects, not exploiting, utilizing all the artists we have on staff. But the main focus is to promote other artists that aren't well known, to get their name out there, get it so they can simply put, get paid to do what they love to do. When I was younger, that's the best advice I think my dad ever gave me, was find something you love to do and figure out how to get paid for it. I didn't know it was going to be being a, weird clown. But,
And since his other advice was don't watch a Serbian film, he hit a home run with the first.
He didn't. He's not about that. I hate that. But yeah, that's where it's kind of evolved, and at the point we're at now, our website is almost ready to launch. My goal is at the end of this month, beginning of next, and it, even though it has my name attached to it, what I want people to, I guess, take away from it upon visiting it for the first time is it's not like here's Samhain, big picture of me, like on the main page. It's specifically, as I said, an artist collective. You can come there, and not only will it be for the artists, but also community and, potential customers that want to find, a different, I guess, artist that can fulfill needs that isn't on the books. Because the big aspect that would separate, I guess, my goal for the company from any other artist collective, or, you can prescribe, marketing, PR company, any label really that you would want. But what would separate my company from any others would probably be the fact that I handpick and hand invite usually, or personally invite everybody. And the people that I pick usually are not the norm, and they might not have, formal training, maybe completely self-taught. It doesn't matter. Or maybe they have, I don't know, a past dealings legal with the law. I don't care if they're a felon, let's put it that way. As long as they are capable to work in the environment they are legally, and their work speaks for itself, and they fit within the niche that we're going for, and those are the people I want. Because in my experience, those people that have been at rock bottom with what they love to do and their goals are always willing to work for you 110% more and 110% harder, and deliver a 10 times better product than, say, somebody who, got a degree in graphic design, went to school for 4 years, and then is like, oh, this is just a paycheck. Even if they enjoy doing it, those people
agreed. They're more creative, and they're more ferocious in how they apply their creativity. Absolutely,
they're hungry for it, unlike anybody else.
Yep, that's amazing. So, absolutely, that's awesome. So that will be manifesting as a website, and then obviously on your social channels. We'll share the link all over our social channels when the website is live. Because that's amazing. We personally hope that your journey continues for a long, long time, because we support that 1,000%, and think it's tremendous that you're doing it. So that is awesome.
Like, a lot of people have said to me, like, what future goals I've been asked, and I have a lot of those, but I didn't even think it would get to this point in terms of relation to what you just said.
Sure.
My, I guess, whole character or business model in regards to my character is obviously I want to create something that is self-sustaining and leaves somewhat of a quote unquote legacy, hence the company. But I always tell people, I'm like, this could go bottom up tomorrow,
Sure.
for all I know.
Right.
So I'm just kind of riding it out and seeing where it goes. But every day that goes on and every new collaborative venture or project I work on is always like, I'll just sit there and be like, man, like 5 years ago, if you thought you'd be working on this music video or starting this movie, and you're like, hell no. So yeah, I hope so too. I mean, it's been awesome so far, and some of the things on the horizon are definitely really exciting.
Oh,
That's really cool.
That's awesome. Where can people start following you in the meantime until the website launches?
So pretty much I try and be as constant as possible. 90% of all my social media, excluding Twitter, because I think it was already taken, is all, whatever the social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, is Samhain the One, just SamhainTheone. Twitter is, instead of one spelled out, it's just the number one. That's
Gotcha.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon. So they're welcome to come on there and follow me. Right now we're slowly incorporating the website, so they'll see that if they're already on there or if they start following there, besides you guys putting it out as well.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, we highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk
Great.
to us. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
And if you liked this episode and want to continue supporting the show and the page, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/HoloWeekly. There we have our interactive horror game, Telltale Midnight. It is a roll-your-own adventure horror game. We got some deaths in there right now, which is perfect. I love it. The more deaths we get in there, the better. Right now, our survivors are trying to make it out of a zombie-infested voodoo craziness swamp in the south. It is glorious. So head on over there to jump on board for the next chapter where the fans will vote where it takes place. It is awesome. It is interactive, and we love your support.